Welcome to an Equity.Guru investor roundtable. Talking about pot today. A little flashback there for you. I'm Rob, also down here in the basement. He happens to be smoking some weed right now. Apparently, it's Galen over there. Vishal up there in the corner, wishing we were talking about gold and uranium, but we're not. And right upstairs is the guru himself, Chris Perry, who happens to know quite a few things about this industry. Toronto-based Heritage Cannabis. CEO's name, apparently, it's David Schweed. Could be pronounced Schwade, Schweddy. Let's just go with Schweed, since it sounds and is weed. Chairman is Clint Sharples. They're in Toronto. And it's CANN, CAN with an extra N on the Canadian Exchange. Chris Perry, what the hell?
Yes, we can. Look, my overarching thesis on cannabis and the prospects for growth as an industry, no pun intended, that, are we at the bottom? Is it time to get back in? The answer to all of that, my thesis is no. Fucking no. Enough. I'll turn this car around. Listen, every year for the last 3 years, the same guys who are enthusiasts of the product have been saying the bottom's in. Here we go. US is going to change its banking rules. We're off to the races. No. Canada has already shown that its entire industry is a dead man walking. Yes, there's product on store shelves, but the stores are owned by the government. Yes, there's product on store shelves, but nobody gives a shit what the brands are. Yes, there's big companies that have the majority of market share, but the market share dips every single quarter. What you have is an industry that's not really an industry. It's government owned and regulated. The wringing hands of Health Canada have made sure it can't be marketed to anybody. The utopia that we thought we'd see when this thing first started, where patients would be looked after, where we'd have CBD in breakfast cereal, where it'd be next to the Flintstone vitamins on the drugstore aisle, hasn't happened. Yes, you can buy weed from Shoppers Drug Mart online, but you can't go into the store and see it. So grandma's not taking it, using it. It's not in products that you would use if you weren't a stoner. So the general public has almost forgotten that cannabis market exists. Yes, there's growth. Yes, there's always new people that are old enough to now buy cannabis from the store, but there's not enough of them to justify the maniac market caps that we've had, even at these lows that have been coming off year after year. It is still stupidly priced. Marijuana as a market in Canada is dog shit. Now, the US people say, but the US is growing. Yes, the US is growing to bigger market, but it's also piecemeal. And as we've just seen in the last few days, despite the cheerleaders that we've been hearing from on social media for months saying, here comes the Safe Banking Act. No, you couldn't get a fucking legislation passed in the US right now to ban puppies from being put in breakfast cereals.
I've tried.
You couldn't get legislation through to end human trafficking. You can't get any legislation through in the US right now because everyone hates everybody. So what makes you think you're going to suddenly get legalized cannabis? Jesus Christ on a pogo stick. If the Democrats aren't pushing for it, damn Republicans aren't going to make it happen. So stop it. Stop putting money into cannabis. That said, there are individual targets of opportunity out there that have been successfully put through the cleaners and are still bouncing around with some actual business. And Heritage Cannabis, as much as it was a previous client of ours a couple of years ago, we've got no reason to push it. I think is one of those grown-up companies that, given a little bit of time and a little bit of opportunity, can actually turn themselves into something that justifies a higher market cap. Currently, the market cap is $55 million. Currently, they lose around $3 million a quarter. Their admin expenses went up significantly last quarter. Kind of like to do a bit of digging into why that is and whether that's a permanent thing. Sales have also gone up. What Heritage actually does is they create things like vape cartridges, they do extractions, and they do it largely for other people. So other companies that are out there in the marketplace doing their sales push are getting their products from Heritage. So there's some business to be had in that. It's not necessarily the juice of the business. It's a good, solid business that hopefully, once Heritage is out from under some debt and figured out a bit more reductions on their expenses, can lead to a good core little business. Is that business going to be worth $55 million at the market cap is currently? I would say yes. I would say as an acquisition target, that might be the case. Can they move that up from 55 to say 80 or $100 million? Definitely can. But they're not going to get there by doing piecemeal deals with other suppliers. And we're going to send you some concentrates that you can then put a label on and hopefully make a household name. Heritage needs to look inward and really build its own brands, because there's an opportunity there right now. If you said to somebody, I'm going to the weed store and get some weed, and they say, what kind? You'd be more likely to say a strain or indica versus sativa rather than, well, canopy, of course. Everyone hates the big brands because they suck. The smaller brands are struggling along to get noticed. There's a middle ground there where I kind of like Avant Brands, formerly G-Tech, has a good product and starting to get noticed, but also is suffering because there's a lot of people underwater in their stock. You've got Experian. I really like that product, but it's a small company that has struggled to get any sort of stock attention. And I like Heritage because I've been talking to them for a long time. I know their plan. I think it's a good plan, but I think they got swept up with all the mania on cannabis, and they got swept down hard over the last several years on the resulting overturn of that. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. In summation, don't just buy weed companies. Certainly don't buy weed index stocks. Jesus Christ. This shouldn't have to be explained to you. It's like if people were still buying blockchain on the mania from 3 years ago, you'd be like, what are you thinking? Let it die. Let the pieces all get messed around like Lego bricks, and then let someone come and put them all back together again with actual businesses that make sense. The mid-range businesses, to me, are your only chance to find good targets. Heritage, I think, at this price, with the share chart that it's had for the last year plus, I think this is one of them. But they need financials to come out that actually shows a profit. Thank you. Good night. God bless.
Galen, you're shaking your head on the market cap, by the way.
Yeah, I understand. I'm opposite in the way I'm thinking about Heritage Cannabis than Chris is at this point. I do agree that the whole industry got hammered and got piped up and hyped up, and basically is not worth a fraction of what it has come to. And mostly based on the falsehoods that they were portraying, that somehow every person on the planet was going to start smoking marijuana, and then we just introduce another planet into that equation, and everybody would just smoke more and more and more and more marijuana. The truth is, the people that are going to smoke marijuana or use marijuana are the people that are already doing it. You're not going to get a lot of market penetration in regards to grabbing somebody who's never done it before. That's not typically what it does. So I don't see a huge growth, even if the advertising has changed. I think they're already servicing the crowd that they have. United States, Canada, the whole ball of wax. And I think everybody within the sector is highly inflated and well beyond their means. Heritage Cannabis, I'm guessing, has been around for 8 years approximately. That's my guess at this point. The company itself has been around since 2010, but I think it turned the corner between 2013 and 2015. But that leaves it as a 7 or 8 year old company that still isn't making fucking money. And its price to earnings ratio is 10 to 1. And it loses more than it brings in revenue. So I don't see it as any kind of workable business model. Yeah, the pieces need to fall apart. There needs to be some heavy soul searching within Heritage Cannabis and every cannabis company. What is the reality here? What can we actually provide? Where is the value that we store? This is what has to happen. And I think in the next 6 to 12 months, hopefully, we will see the destruction to where the place is leveled enough to where the pieces that are left are functional, that they will only be able to address what they can address. I don't see Heritage as being a $50 million company because I don't think there are too many $50 million companies that handle marijuana. I mean, that realistically handle marijuana. All of them are losing money. Like I point to me to the ones that are actually bringing in cash.
Galen, but growth.
See, that's the thing. It's all a lie. So basically, we really do have to see a decimation within the marketplace. And not that I dislike Clint Sharples, do not. I just think the model itself and the industry needs a bigger shit kicking than it's getting right now.
I know I've already said a whole bunch, but I'm going to say a few other things.
Okay.
Because, God damn it, this is my go-to rant. Look, Heritage is third in Canada in concentrate sales, right? Third in the country, and it's a $50 million company, and it shows a share price that is at almost historic lows. Like, what does that tell you about the rest of the business? Imagine what fourth place in Canada is doing. Imagine what seventh place is doing. They're third in the country in concentrates, and they're struggling. Now, I will say that their last, I did a little digging while Galen was talking, and their last financials, apparently a crane fell on their facility from next door neighbors last quarter, and they had Kelowna wildfires that kind of took them out of the running. So I can see how maybe they were buying weed maybe to fulfill contracts and catch up. So that's maybe why they had a bigger loss than usual. Sales are up. I think there's something there to be had. But the problem for me is I don't care if you're first in the country in concentrate sales. Who's buying concentrate? It's not my grandma. It's not my ex-wife. It's not, I still go to parties, and if people hear that you like edibles, will say things like, "Oh, I didn't know you were a drug addict." And it's like, no, I'm not a drug addict. I just don't want to drink martinis anymore. You need more of me to make this a real industry. You need to cross over into Main Street. And at the moment, if you walk into any cannabis store, it's guys wearing cannabis T-shirts that are the majority of the customers, right? There are variations, obviously, and there's slow, progressive uptake from people who maybe smoked in high school and now are having one every now and then. But if I take me as an example of the world demographics out there, I've got edibles in the freezer, and I don't eat them anymore. Like maybe once a month we go, all right, let's have an edible. But I'm not drinking much anymore either. I'm trying to live a healthier life. And the products that I want, where there's health benefits from cannabis, where are they? What am I supposed to take a supplement? I don't want to take a supplement. I want to buy Wonder Bread enriched with CBD. I want to go and get Monster Energy drink with a little bit of a cannabis kick. I can't get those. Or if the beverages do exist, the government puts rules on them that as soon as you've got 3 of them in your hand, you're not allowed to buy any more cannabis without leaving the building and spinning around and coming back. Like, if as an industry goes, the government is not fostering growth and innovation and uptake. And so any company, best down to worst, and I've got investments in other companies, I've got investments in dispensaries, but it is pushing shit uphill because nobody's clamoring to smoke. If you try and light up a smoke at a dinner party, tobacco or otherwise, people are like, can you go to the patio and do that? There's signs in the elevator of the building saying no cannabis products. Like back in 2014, the big companies were saying, we're investing millions of dollars in educating doctors. My doctor still won't prescribe it. Right, I'll shut up now.
This particular stock is down there. What are we looking at?
Yeah, it's down. I'll keep it a bit short and sweet here, just to
Sorry, Michelle.
No, it's not that. I just don't want to depress some of the people who are bullish on cannabis because the charts have gotten beat up.
We're going to tell them. We're going to tell them whether or not to buy this particular stock. We're not telling them to buy the sector. So. Right.
But I mean, it's been following sort of what the sector's been doing. I know a few weeks ago, I was a bit bullish because there was, I'm rewinding the chart here, but I was a bit bullish because it looked exciting. We had a breakout above 7 cents. And I mean, same sort of pattern was showing up on many other cannabis charts and even the MSOS ETF. And at that time, it was all that news. We were, I guess, getting some positive news about that bill from, I believe it was Nancy Mace in the States, and everyone was saying that, that Safety Act is going to pass. Didn't end up happening. And we just continued to sell off. We had a bit of an uptrend here, specifically on Heritage Cannabis, that I think, would have been interesting if we held it and maybe had another push higher, but instead we broke below. And I believe there was actually 1 million shares that were sold off yesterday. Again, fundamentally, it's a tough sector here. Obviously, it's getting beat up. A lot of people are looking at cannabis, though, as saying, hey, it's still cheap. compared to everything else here on the market. But if I was going to be looking at cannabis here, I was initially thinking the U.S. side is where you want to look. But as Chris just mentioned, they can't get anything done there, and we sort of seen that twice this year actually. Back in March and April, we had Chuck Schumer and stuff and his entourage, I guess, saying that this Cannabis Act is going to pass. They said no, we have other things to look at right now. And then we have the Republican side here try to pass something, but didn't work. So it's frustrating. That's probably the proper word right now. It is really frustrating on the cannabis sector. A lot of the charts are beat up like this. Heritage Cannabis including, and we are very close to basically previous record lows here. We're at 7 cents right now, and previous record lows are at 4.5 cents. So it's more about what do you think the future has in store for cannabis, and obviously, as Chris nicely outlined here, it's not looking the best for many of these guys. If I was going to look at a few cannabis companies, I would be looking more at maybe the producers of who grow the stuff and who actually sell that. That's the way I would approach it, rather than the retailers. But it's not looking, the charts are not looking too good. But there might be some people who are looking at this as a bottom picker, but they're probably looking at the entire cannabis sector as a whole like that, saying, hey, look, the stock is really, really cheap right now. Every cannabis stock is beat up really cheap right now. And, they're probably looking at good news, but is that good news going to ever come?
So here's the question for Galen first is, will it drop? Do you wait for it to go to 4 cents, or do you take a flyer on a bottom picker at 7?
To be honest with you, I don't have enough confidence in this at all.
Yeah.
I really need to see a tremendous change in what their model is, what brands they're providing, how they're distributing them, and the agreements and contracts that they're bringing through the door. I don't really see it hitting any kind of positive action. So I'm going to go with 0, man. And, admittedly, there's Rob and Chris. I don't know what Rob's past is, but I know Chris was never a smoker, by the way, or any kind of imbiber until he actually hooked up with Hunter S. Thompson. And now, as you can see, he's become Hunter S. Thompson. But, yeah, it's... there is proof positive that people who are not within that hemisphere do enter it and use it, but I don't think it's going to be everybody like the myth that was purported at the top of the cannabis revolution.
Well, I think we should ask maybe Chris or Galen here just quickly. I mean, what about shrooms? Do you think that's taking all the
shrooms rule?
Well, there's a tremendous regulatory maze that has to be traversed first before psychedelics. Yeah, there's a lot that has to be done. The science has to not necessarily improve, but stay improved, because unfortunately there's still a lot of anecdotal stuff that's being put out there. They still really haven't discovered the basis of what is the assistive property within psychedelics during mental therapy, whether it's the trip, whether it's the guidance that you're getting, or the brain reformation that takes place. Although recently there has been research to suggest that it isn't anything to do with the psychedelics. The psychedelics is merely the pathway that it reaches the brain, but in and of itself, it's the anti-inflammatory aspects of psychedelics that are the helpful product, because depression and many other neurological disorders are being attributed now to neuroinflammation.
I just asked that because, the retail traders, the retail investors I talk to, I don't really think they're talking about cannabis as much anymore. They're talking about shrooms. So I think shroom is sort of taking the spotlight now.
Yeah.
Shrooms is where the value's at, right? Right. Cannabis is already now a mature industry. The big valuations have been had and are now just coming off. In order for something to double, it's got to really shoot the moon news-wise. Psychedelics, there's still growth there. It might not be legal for a few years, but a lot of money was made in cannabis before it was legal too. So I would say, for mine, psychedelics are the bomb. They're fantastic. They've done more for my mood and emotional state in the last couple of years, and emotional growth, than anything else in my life before it. I think without psychedelics, going through 3 years of pandemic, I might have been in a lot lower psychological state than I am. But the market really isn't going to be people who go to psychiatrists and are using it in a clinical setting. It's going to be people who want to go to the beach at sunset and see unicorns in the clouds, right? And, there'll be people who have bad trips, and that's because, as with all drugs, if you're taking it in an unsupervised, inconsistent setting with an inconsistent supply that might be cut with drain cleaner, you're going to have a bad time. Like, honestly, if
it also largely depends on the mental makeup of the individual taking
and the kind of mushrooms that you're taking, and like all this requires research. But I was just after our most recent wrestling event out for drinks at the Roxy, and half the people there weren't drinking, and half of the women there were drinking, the vodka enhanced sodas in cans because they don't want to be roofied. And a lot of people that weren't drinking are just standing there with their hands by their side, like, I don't want to be the bummer of the party here, but what am I supposed to do? Wouldn't it be great if there was a shroom room where you could just go and do that? Or a weed room where you could go and have a smoke and have it all siphoned down the chimney and come back and be just as happy as you were if you had 2 cocktails, minus all the after effects. Like, I just think that there's so much good and positivity that could come out of this if it weren't for the fact that there are still those people out there that say, oh, are you a drug addict? Because, you have weed once in a while. Like, that mentality is so fucking old and stupid and holds everything good back. Honestly, to God, like, imagine if people invented airplanes today, right? The government will be like, whoa, you want to seriously throw that massive multi-ton object into the sky over our cities? But what if there's a crash, right? And you'd never get them regulated. And so the opposite is the fact with cannabis. Cannabis has been around as a devil drug for so long that it's going to take multiple generations to get through that archaic sense of reefer madness, where anything that touches it must be bad. Realistically, I wish I could give it to my kids because they've both got ADHD, and I know that they would have an easier time of it if their brain was slowed down a little bit and they're able to actually concentrate. But can't give it to people under 18 because it's going to affect their brains. Yes, that's the point.
Right. But the senator's son can have 3 martinis and wrap himself and his girlfriend around a telephone pole after drinking and driving.
I mean, you take edibles, aren't you afraid that you're going to end up on heroin? Yeah.
Did you say, Galen, you're not spending a penny right now then?
Nope.
Chris, you're not spending a penny right now then?
No, man. I keep watching. If it started to move up above 10 cents and there was like a sustained movement, I might jump in there. But I'd actually be looking for the next financials to get an accurate assessment of the health of Heritage. And I'm more inclined than most to jump on because I think it's a company run by adults. But there's still things to work out in that business.
Michelle, are we going through clean slate of zeros?
Yeah, I'm sitting on the side here for Heritage. The cannabis space here, frustrating, I think, is probably the right word. But if there is another break, above 9 or 10 cents here that I have, I would like to see that on the overall cannabis sector. If that does happen, obviously there's probably going to be some sort of fundamental news out at that time. So I'm just sitting on the sideline right now and putting my money towards other things that are cheap, such as precious metals.
We should also point out that Heritage isn't really selling itself right now. On their investor page, they don't have any sort of investor deck or presentation. No. It's like they're in hibernation. They're waiting for those better results to come in. And if they're going to start it, that's when they're going to start it.
They need to jingly dingly the Equity.Guru. Hello. All right. That's it for the man in the basement over there.
I think we've just made sure they're never going to jingly dingly us. Harry's shitting all over the industry that he helped kick off, but all right.
We can do it. We can do this. Chris upstairs in the penthouse. Michelle up in the other penthouse. For those gents, I'm Rob. Again, well, you don't have to not invest, people. Do your own homework, do your education. Take a whirl. If you want to go long term, 7 cents, 6 cents, 8 cents, wait a year.
Spend your $200 on edibles. That's the way you're really going to profit.
There you go.
If you guys think or if you guys think we're wrong here on the cannabis side, let us know in the comments below if you're bullish, and let us know why.
Yeah. Love to hear why and all that other good stuff.
And I should just say, I thought I was taking a CBD gummy, but the fucking Health Canada regulations on font size mean that I actually just took 5 grams of THC.
Okay.
So we're about to start the workday in a new way. But I also the Wana watermelon hybrid is tasty as fuck.
Good. We cannot guarantee. I'm a chocolate guy. It was all chocolate all the time. We cannot guarantee any results, people. So do your own homework. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next Equity Guru. Oh, by the way, let's just give it to him again. CANN, CANN on the Canadian. Yep. A watch list for Heritage Cannabis out of Toronto, Ontario. See you next time on the Equity Guru Investor Roundtable.